Okay, let's go ahead and start off with some prayer. Welcome to Strong Families. Thanks for being here. Today we are going to be talking about setting your family up for summer, and I am very excited about summer. I don't know if anyone's with me in that, but it's probably one of the seasons I most look forward to, mainly because it seems I have childhood memories of having more free time in summer. So I think, there's this conditioned excitement to it all in my brain. Let's go ahead and pray, and then we'll get started. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here together, just in pursuit of just creating betterness in our families. And Lord, we know that every good thing comes from you. So we just ask that you would bless our summer that we have coming up. We want you to be a part of that, and we want our children to grow in you this summer. We want them to grow in their physicality and in their ability to think and to sustain attention. And Lord, we want that for ourselves. We want to pay attention as parents to the right things, to your right things, Lord. We want the things that matter to you to matter to us. And Lord, we just pray that we will experience peace and fulfillment this summer during a time that's very unstructured and a time that we're left to our own devices, Lord. We pray that you would come in and fill that, Lord. Amen. All right. Welcome. First, we need to talk about kind of what summer is ideally. Summer, in the way that I think of it, is it's kind of a microcosm of your life when you think about it. It's full of all of this potential. It's got a ton of potential, and it hasn't been tainted yet, because summer isn't here yet, is it? We're looking forward to it, and we're very excited about it, and that is pretty common. I think most people are like me. Most of us are excited about summer. Who is excited about summer, actually? Yes. Okay. Bryce is, for sure. And it's a blank canvas that we can do anything with, and we like to fantasize about all the things that we're going to do during the summer months. The problem is, and the way it is like life, is that one day, summer will actually be here. The behavior patterns that we have right now, we're going to carry those into summer on day one. And before you know it, the first week will have gone by. And then we, as parents, we kind of get in our heads about that because we don't see ourselves doing the things that we told ourselves that we were going to do. Does that make sense? It can kind of fall flat once it's actually here. We envision greatness and we end up kind of mediocre. That's been my experience kind of over and over again. Yes, even as a Macaluso. And generally, I think we do a very good job of using summers well. But that's kind of going to be my general approach, because I know as a society we're using electronics a ton, more and more, even as parents. It's not just our kids, if we're being extremely honest here. And I think there's something about that, engaging in that helps life kind of fall flat sometimes. We can have great expectations, but like I said, the weeks start coming by, and then this parenting guilt sets in. And that is kind of how you know you're in a bad place, is when you start, oh no, 2 weeks of summer, not many left. All of a sudden a month is down, and you're like, oh shoot, I'm in really big trouble here. I better get going. The other thing that summer is, and the second thing we're going to deal with today, we're going to deal with our side. We got to handle our misbehavior as parents before we can handle our children's misbehavior. So we're going to talk about both. And that's always going to be the case, by the way. always when you come to Strong Families, we're going to talk about us and how to fix us. And we're going to talk about, eventually that will help us fix our kids. But we'll talk specifically about how we handle problems with our kids. The other thing that summer is really great about is helping your children grow in ways that they can't when school is in session. School provides a lot of barriers to learning, and I know that sounds really funny probably when you hear it, because it is solely there for the purpose of education, but they're in a building, and the way I think of learning is not necessarily designed to take place in a building, in a classroom, necessarily. We were created as human beings to learn through movement of our bodies. That's kind of where the term muscle memory comes from in the military, because you are doing and you are learning so deeply that your brain is just on autopilot, just goes, your body goes. The American education system is off track in this way, and it's not every country that's doing what we're doing, where we stay in a building and you study really hard, and you kind of teach to the things that are supposed to help us look good as a country, but it kind of backfires because we're not getting a lot of movement. We're getting less and less movement in our education system. And you know this when you see like these movement hallways, you stand on the little squiggly line, and stuff like that is starting to turn out, and it's a really sad way to include movement because they're not outside, they're still in a building. So there's a ton of things that we'll talk about later that should be helping us learn that they're still not getting through that kind of sensory hallway. So basically, we're going to talk about those two things: how to create the summer that will help our children develop physically and mentally, and how to have a summer that will help us develop physically and mentally. Summer can teach you lessons that school cannot. For example, the summer of my freshman year, I wanted a job. Maybe the summer of my sophomore year, I wanted a job. My mom said no. Stay at home. I want you to be a kid one last summer. And so that's what I did. What did I learn that summer? That I was never going to do that again. It was full of boredom and depression and not a lot else. We kind of lived out of the way of some land, and there wasn't just a lot of things to do. Every once in a while I'd have a friend over or something like that, but mainly it was full of nothingness, and that kind of taught me on a very deep level that I don't want nothingness. That when I tell myself I want, to do less or to do nothing, that's what I now term to myself a depressive desire. Like, that's not actually what I want to do with my life. And that summer taught me that a long time ago. And in some ways that kept me out of trouble. But not in every way. And then 2 summers later, the summer of my junior year, I went and got a construction job. I was building houses. I was a laborer, so I was carrying all the lumber that they were building the house with, really. And I learned that I would never do that again. I learned that my career was going to be indoors. And that seems kind of like a surface level-y kind of thing to learn on a very deep level. But it was hard in ways that I didn't want to struggle the rest of my life. And I once met a 28-year-old, I swore he was 50. He told me he was 28, and I just started laughing. I couldn't help it. That being outdoors is hard in ways that I didn't want. I learned that my hobbies would be how I would meet my needs for the outside, and that is how my life is now. I work inside, where a bulk of my time is spent, and I enjoy hiking and being outside, every once in a while. Parts of the day, not all day. I cannot imagine building a house in the winter. But also that summer, I became a more rugged and sturdy individual. And what you'll notice is my parents allowed me to work this time. And not only did they allow me to work, they allowed me to do the kind of work that I wanted to do. I chose that job. And that's also important. That was also very important for me, learning the lessons that I came out with. And I will never forget what I learned in my teen years. So we can't always predict the way that our children are going to learn or grow during the summer months because it's kind of up to them. But we know when we look back at our lives during those summer months, I'll bet you can think of simple things that have stuck with you that you learned during summer. We used to do summers better back in the 90s. Hashtag 90s kids. Yes, we did summers much better, but as a society, we stink at them now, so we actually have to have this summer talk, to make sure that our children are doing the things that they're supposed to grow, that they're supposed to do, which would be grow physically, take risks, fail physically so that they learn physical lessons and keep them with themselves. And you cannot separate the brain and the body like our education system has done. And I think the better we understand this as parents, how the brain learns, the better we'll be able to provide what schools don't. Not only during summer, but while school's in session too. This I took directly from a research article. When physical activity is used as a break from academic learning time, post-engagement effects include better attention, increased on-task behaviors, and improved academic performance. Those are three pretty strong things. The last one's probably the strongest. Increased academic performance. So you could say that's probably correlated with learning somehow. If they're performing better, not only are they paying attention better and doing what they're supposed to better, but they're learning better. And that's just with breaks in school that are more physical. I would think it would be even better if they were spending outside time being physical. Actually, I know that would be better. But that's something really simple. Another finding was one 30-minute exercise session per week for a child improves academic performance. That's crazy. That kind of shows how little physical activity our kids are getting too, and how distant it is from their learning. So if we could do something about that as parents, I would think that would be a really good thing to do. All right, going back to us. What do you want to see yourself doing this summer? That's kind of how I have to term that to my brain in order for it to have the impact that I want it to have on myself. So yes, I really do. That helps me fight my depressive desires. When I phrase it in that exact way. What do you want to see yourself doing this summer? I would ask you guys that. And be careful with how you answer that. Like I said, we don't really just want to spend time on the couch this summer. If you dig a little deeper, I guarantee you there are some things that you want to do this summer. Another way to put it would be, at the end of your life, how are you going to wish that you spent this summer when your child was however old your children are now? What are you going to want to have done with that slot of time, that 3 months? I would argue that we want activation. We want to see ourselves doing, period. And we all have our different things that we would like to do. We want to see ourselves spending time with our kids, We want to see ourselves laughing, probably, definitely. I love laughing. I probably laugh every day. Out of any therapist, I probably include laughter the most. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Because you're working with people that are in a really bad place. But if there's an ability to laugh, I tend to see more hope, for that relationship and for that individual in the future. So I actually think that's really important. We would probably want to see ourselves moving our bodies in some type of way. I don't like hiking during the summer, but I like swimming a lot in the summer. I like hiking in the fall when it gets a little cooler. And there's an engagement with my kids that I want there to be. I want to be messing around with them. I want to be playing with them in the yard, jumping them on the trampoline like they ask a million times to do, which tends to take the wind out of my sails when they do that, but hey. So those are kind of the things. And this next list is something that helps keep me on track with those things. That is, I have to narrow my focus mentally. I have learned something about myself. I can't take more than one moment in my mind at once. I have to slim it down. I was not created with the ability to even take a single day, let alone a week, in at once mentally, or else I start to dread and I start to worry. So when we kind of narrow the focus mentally to the one thing that we're doing, it really helps me. When I get to work and I look at my schedule, I try not to look more than 2 hours ahead. Because invariably, I know that there's going to be some things on my schedule that I don't want to do later. And I'll start to not like my work. And at work, I don't want to not like my work. I want to like it a lot. And I do. And what I found is that when I'm dreading something in the future, like later in the day, maybe it's someone I don't really like meeting with, maybe it's, a large slotted paperwork time and I have to write something up that I don't want to write. In the moment when I actually get to that thing, God kind of shows up, and I'm not hating my life in that given moment when I actually get to that dreaded task that I've been looking at all day. So I kind of made a deal with myself. Stop doing that. Don't do it. If God's going to show up when you're actually doing it, why dread it in the first place? Why create all this negative emotion? So you've probably heard of mindfulness. It's kind of similar to that. I don't like mindfulness, but I like the actual kind of living in the moment side of mindfulness. So therefore, I like mindfulness. But I don't like how society's kind of consuming it now and calling it something different than, don't worry about tomorrow. That's really all it is. Set your mind on things above, those kind of things. More frequent breaks. People are more productive. IO psychology says, industrial organizational psychology found that people are more productive the more breaks that they take. And that is literally how I learned that for my licensure test. There was no numbers. It was just the more breaks, the more better. It's like, what? How, to what extent is it better? How many breaks? Yes. But, studying for this and kind of looking things up, about every hour should be about 15 minutes of break time when you're working on something, when you're doing something. And I would say that applies to summer as well. Just as well as, we're not going to consume a whole summer full of activities in one moment. We're also not going to strive to do everything in one day with no breaks. We have to approach summer with a pace that we can keep up with as parents. We're to the age now where we're aging and our bodies require rest. So yeah, we have to be moderated in our approach. I try to expend my muscles 50 to 70% 2 to 3 times a week. I found that I'm in a better mood when I do that. And it can be anything. This isn't just weightlifting for the boys, you know. This is like everyone should probably be doing this. And this is my list, so steal from it what you want and make your own list. But the message really is have a list that's going to help you engage your kids this summer. And this is something that helps me. If I'm not doing this, I'm on the couch on Facebook a lot more. And I'm that much closer to depression. Also increase your heart rate. Zone 2 should be about 60% is where zone 2 starts for 20 minutes 2 to 3 times a week. That could be a walk. It could be a walk-run. It could be a run. It could be yoga. It could be anything. But I also try to do that. Those who exercise 0 were 44% more likely to be depressed. So that's big. Exercise, increased heart rate, 2 to 3 times a week, or strength training for 20 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week, treats depression just as well or better. We're thinking it's a little bit better now, new research shows, than antidepressant medication. Isn't that weird? That's some weird stuff. So yeah, God created us a body. We're supposed to move. I don't think that part is new, but the doing it is where it gets tough, that application kind of knowledge. I'm just now kind of getting to the point in my development where I don't just know these things, but I do them consistently. And so that's kind of crazy that takes as long as it does. But I figured that, if I need this, then it's probably good to talk about when we're thinking about creating a specific kind of summer that we think our children would like. So be exercising. I think that everyone needs exercise. Okay, here's a weird one. Try to get 15 minutes of sun per day. And if you can do that barefooted, do it. Does anybody know why the barefooted thing? Has anyone heard anything close to that or about that? Oh, it is. I know. It is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Basically. It's ions. Yep. There was a study where they connected everybody's feet with wires. Some of them were connected to the ground wire of the outlets in this lab. The people that were actually connected to the ground wire of the lab were shown to be less stressed when they answered questions about stress. So there does seem to be something about that. The theory is negative ions from the earth kind of help us get rid of free radicals in our body, and it may kind of operate on that. Kind of like getting antioxidants. Eating good food tends to help us too. Lack of vitamin D, the other thing, spending 15 minutes in the sun. If it's any more of that, you should probably put on sunscreen so you don't die of skin cancer someday. By the way, don't sue me. Leading cause of depression in young adults is a lack of vitamin D. That's been something we've kind of just learned, which is weird that we didn't know something like that before. But yeah, really simple things that it takes that we should be doing just to, maintain ourselves as parents. so that we don't fall into, our couch depressed. I try to do that. I actually do that. Actually, every lunch break, I go for about a mile walk, and that kind of knocks out all of these. I don't do that barefooted. But if I'm playing outside with my kids, I try to be barefooted. And just consuming good spiritual food daily. I've done so many different things, and I won't say that I'm terribly consistent, but they all seem to, when I'm doing them, pour into my life in a really, really important way. And a lot of times what I think we do as parents is we separate how we're doing spiritually from our family and their functioning, our kids' functioning, and our marital functioning. And we shouldn't do that because it is directly tied to those things. How easy would it be for a stranger to enter your household? You didn't know they were there, fly on the wall, for them to know spiritually where you're at. How long would that take? Not very long. They would know spiritually where you're at as a parent before you did. Isn't that weird? We're blind to our own spiritual functioning. I think that's kind of, Satan keeps that hidden from us. That's what happens, I think, when we dissociate ourselves from prayer. We lose track of where we're at. But we shouldn't do that. Our children's lives are tied to how we are functioning spiritually. And there are studies on that, some interesting things. I need to research that more, actually, but couples that were prayed for and knew it fared a little bit better in couples counseling compared to couples that were not being prayed for. And couples, there was even an effect for couples that didn't know they were being prayed for. They did better than just normal couples counseling couples. Isn't that interesting? That's pretty cool. That's, not what everyone wanted to find, but, and that was actually presented to me as a student at a Strong Families Conference. So, all right, we got two different things coming at us from the Bible here. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Psalms 90:12. And that is why I asked you the question at the end of your life. We're standing before God. What are we going to wish we have done, with this summer? I think that's what Psalms is talking about. Don't waste your life away. I think God knew that naturally we would have kind of depressive desires. We would want to go after some things that weren't good for us. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Thinking in that way kind of has a way of just, putting you in the right place, doesn't it? It's like, wow. All right, and there are only so many days, for sure. And contrast that with Ecclesiastes 4:6. Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. That strikes you kind of different than number your days and get going, doesn't it? It's kind of like, oh, okay, so I need to be smart about my approach. I don't just get all that I can get out of summer. I think that this applies to summer just as well as it does for money or anything we pursue, really. I think God also knew that we would pursue some things, and when we knew that we should pursue some things, that we would have a tendency to overdo it at times, as I definitely do. Has anyone ever heard of the pendulum swing of change? It's when you go too far, when you make a change. That's all it is. It tends to happen more than once, though. You'll learn, wow, I don't like sitting on the couch all day. I don't like spending a summer full of just nothing. So you're like, oh, I got to do everything. And you'll be a part of the Macaluso clan, and we just go get everything, do it all. But that's not smart either, because why? Because we run out of steam and we quit. And that's the pendulum swing going the other way. It's like, oh, now I'm back to square one. But the more we kind of do that, the more we find a new balance. So it's worth doing. All right, so that list that I showed you of mine, you should have one of yours, know what you like. I trust that, I'm talking to smart people, you probably have a list. I just want to reinforce the importance and the kinds of things that are good to have on that list. They can be really stupid, like spending barefoot time in the grass. If that helps you, do it. Like, why not? If you're doing hot yoga, Jason, on the weekends, I'm not going to judge you. That is just fine. I might join you in some of those things, but it's usually those kinds of things that you find in the treatment plans of people with severe addictions and severe mental health issues. That I find myself talking about those things all of the stinking time. In any treatment manual that you grab, you'll find things like that. You'll find, the treatment is actually encouraging people to find the things that work for them and do them. Except it takes a lifetime to actually, not learn them, but to actually learn to do them. So this new list is a list that I'm really excited about. This is what I want out of summer. This has nothing to do with my kids. I actually want these things. Batting cages, I just want to smack the heck out of the ball. And yes, I'm going to take my kids with me. And what could my kids possibly learn from the batting cages? You guys have anything that they could actually learn?
It feels like to get hit by a baseball.
Yes. Don't stand too close to the baseball. Hand-eye coordination, timing, patience, those sorts of things. Golf. I want to golf. A lot of the same things, I think, could come out of golf as batting cages. But one that seems really important to me, I still remember one summer my dad taking me golfing. And I think it was there where you see like the expanse. Golf courses have just expanse of nature. And it's like, wow, I really like God's nature. And I think that could also be an important lesson because you're not going to get that at the batting cages. Summer camp, those are always good. I'm actually going to summer camp. I get to because my wife, Crystal, she gets to take her family because she's the doctor at one. And it's a really awesome summer camp. So that's fun. I think my kids learn all sorts of things. Socially, there's a new social environment that you're cast into. And you probably remember some of those ways of being. You learn how to introduce yourself, how to get along with people, what not to say and what to say if you're trying to fit in, those sorts of things. And it's important because it can be a new group of people. It's not, sometimes you're introduced to a new crowd, and that can be good for kids to have a do-over. I want to go camping. I want to go to Worlds of Fun. Worlds of Fun, it strikes me that my kids might learn that anything worth chasing and having fun at, there's going to be a lot of struggle into and require patience. So anytime I think of Worlds of Fun, I'm not like, the rides take like 2 minutes tops. The rest of it is what? Waiting in the line, sweating. But that waiting in the line and sweating, depending on what you're doing, can be fun too. Depending on who you take with you and what kind of conversations you're engaged in. So yeah, I think that can provide some useful things. I want to be poolside with a book, a good book. That's going to be great. I want to be laying in a hammock too. And notice I think there's 8 things here. If I did all of these once, that's a pretty decent pace, right? That's not like I'm not killing myself. But I also won't be able to tell myself I didn't do anything with my summer because I did these things. That would be like 1 a week if you include a vacation, and summer camp for the kids, or 2 weeks. So that's my version of kind of a pretty good, active summer, but not a boring summer. And I think, that's mine. I'm married to a spouse that will no doubt have her own list. So my list kind of creates space for her list too. But have a list and have things that you want out of this summer. For sure. And they should be things that you're excited about and that you think your kids would be excited about too. Not only that, but some of those things did come from conversations with my kids. Not all of those are just mine. I'm sure that my kids aren't going to be hating Worlds of Fun. So, yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. They're so bad. Uh-huh. I know. Tell them to relax. Yeah.
Like, I'm sending this email to your teacher, or I'm doing this real quick when we finish this and we'll be right with you. Just letting them know, hey, I see you, I'm paying attention,
Yeah.
I'm finishing this, and then I'll be here.
I'm not ignoring you. Yeah.
I've heard that once. I don't know.
Right.
There's validity to it, but
Probably. I could see that. Yeah.
There's a mode you can use when it's like you're driving and you put your phone in like no alert mode that sends text messages back from whoever texts you saying that they're driving.
Oh, cool.
I have a friend that does it. So literally, just what you, I don't know how you can auto set it to be like, it's a device-free day.
A drive emoji.
Yeah. Well, it literally is a text message back saying this person is currently in like non-contact mode
I like that.
or something like that.
It's kind of like the auto email, the out of office email. Yeah. I never use that and I always get in trouble. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do it. Just sit and wait. How many of you are for sure that most, over 50%, maybe even over 75% of your child's summer would be consumed with electronics if you allowed it, if they are left to their own devices? Yeah, easily. Who else would say that they like their children better when they have been grounded from their electronics? Yeah. It's not just me noticing this. I'm so glad. This question came from kind of a dinner we were having with another couple. And we both were like, yeah, they're a better human being. They like us more when, it's been a couple of days off of the electronics. And I think that our answers to these questions kind of lead us to a really obvious place, that our children need less time on their devices. They need our structure to help them with their devices. So what that could look like, we're going to talk about some more things, but this is actually for our kids. This isn't for us. Are you willing to spend 1 or 2 days per week device-free? And yes, I do think that, if we're forcing our kids to do that we shouldn't have a lot of time those days. But of course, you're going to need to text people, and there's business things going on, but definitely make it a point to step away from those. We're going to try that this summer. We haven't tried that yet. That's kind of the one thing I brought up in this that we haven't tried yet. A complete day or two. We're probably going to, we're going to go with one of those. And we have gotten to the point where we have told our kids that we're going to do this, and they don't mind it. Like, okay, they seem open to it. But we'll see when it comes down to nitty-gritty. I'll let you know in future sessions. And I went back and forth on this. I always get in my head a little bit, and I want to check myself. I never want to present something that's just completely wrong or false up here, I feel kind of a responsibility. And my brother-in-law, in a previous conversation, that said that he had a lot of time away from the TV. He was raised in a household, basically TV wasn't okay. And when he would go to his grandparents, there was no restrictions on TV, and he would binge like crazy. And he's not a TV addict now. He's, actually a hardworking human being. He's got his stuff together. So that got me thinking, is this really a thing that we don't need to worry about as parents? It's going to kind of settle itself. And humans kind of just find this way with all this technology to exist and not be addicted and not to experience a lot of harm from it. But I don't think that's right. And the studies aren't out yet, of course, because our children aren't adults. So we're doing something in society that's never really been done. So we're living the experiment. And I really do think that the most accurate way to think of devices is with an addictions model. Because of those two ways that we answered those two questions. We like our children better when they're device-free. Their behavior improves. Also, we like meth addicts a lot better once they're away from meth. So that kind of tells you something. And I think whenever you're giving your children like cocaine or meth or something in your household, kind of like we are, you should at least have some boundaries around it. You should help them out with that, And I think that's more accurate than thinking, it'll be okay. We'll just let them regulate that themselves. I think that they need our help. I think they would benefit from time away. I think they need us, especially with their underdeveloped brains. They can't fully structure themselves. We can't expect them to, especially with something that's, as addictive as a device is. And there's tons of differences between TV and a handheld device with TikTok on it. And I think I have done some thinking on this. I am sure that TikTok is probably the worst app for our kids, even over Snapchat. And I think Snapchat isn't great, but I would rather my kids be talking to another human being than just watching video after video and that algorithm getting better and better, at sending them to a place that we don't want them to be. I've started to, a couple times ago, I said, 3 hours seems about good in the research. 4 hours, a ton of bad stuff starts popping up. They're more angry. They're less liked by their teachers. They're more out of control. I forget the actual stats, but there wasn't one that was less than 40, and it went up to 75%. More chaotic, more angry, less. They went with authority less. I can't think of what I'm trying to say, but, Yes, less compliant. So we know that electronics are kind of bad for our kids, but we're still finding out how that's going to affect them as adults. I would rather be the parent that's kind of involved in the process and helping them out with that, with regulated time, little bits of time each day, get them used to that. Hopefully get them in a pattern of that before they're out of our households, and that may create kind of this cognitive schema of, okay, this thing is a little bit dangerous. I can only take so much of this each day. And hopefully that helps teach them that. Did someone have their hand raised over here? Yeah.
I read a really good book about screen time and kids. It's called Screen Kids. It's the name. It is a Christian author. It's Dr. Gary Chapman is one of the co-authors. They're both Christian authors. Anybody really wants to. And they talk about skills kids lose because when they spend too much time on devices and skills you might have kids to gain by that personal one-on-one time. And they have kids from preschool age when one of them has a preschooler all the way up to grown children, and so they've got all the age ranges if somebody really wants more info on something like that.
Awesome. Gary Chapman, huh?
He's one of the authors.
Awesome. What was the title?
It's called Screen.
Screen.
Kids. And the other author is a lady. Arlene.
Oh, cool. Love it. Yep. Thank you for that. That's awesome. All right. The semi-structured summer. We have done this with our kids. It's a way. What is this? Why would we do this? It helps create structure for children that really rely on it. Like we said, they can't provide their own structure. They're small human beings. I would argue that teens aren't that great at doing their structure. I'm still not that great. Like if I have a summer, I'm no good. You know, I need someone to structure my summer, and work helps me do that. And if your teens do work, that is a great thing. Let them go into that. Let them learn their lessons just like I did. But for the kids that are too small for work, what do we do? Well, I think that it is a good thing to consider scheduling 2 to 3 hours of their day, either every weekday or every other day. So that would be 3 times a week. Anything we can do to help this be an easier pill to swallow, because it can't feel school-ish, you know? So I think getting ideas from them in what to include in the schedule is a really good thing. And then making a list of tasks that they pick from. You know, so they're doing the picking, they feel very in charge of it. That can make it a lot easier. The completion, it is really important that the completion of these tasks is what unlocks devices. And it's what, you know, gets them to the fun part of their day in their mind. And I would also pair this with the kind of the 3-hour limit of devices or less. I'm actually kind of slimming down on the 3 hours myself. Yeah.
Are you talking like 3 hours per day, and you count TV as a device?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
TV's a device. Yeah. Yep. Electronics is how we've done it in previous summers. There should be good task variety. I think we want to hit creativity, physical development, emphasize that one for sure. Spiritual learning, learning new skills, things like that. If they need help or if they're weak, especially weak in a subject area, we can include some of that. I would be pretty light with that though. And I have an example. Whew, that's helpful. You like that? I have a backup for me. But I wanted it in text, you know, just so we could use it later. But basically, you make your own list. These are just quick and easy things that I thought of. These are 18 things. List item task 1. So this would be you see the instructions, that's only one line. It says choose 3 different tasks each day to earn your device, initial and date, so that we know that we did them and they know which ones they did so they're not repeating it. The list starts over again. Maybe you've added new things, you know, in a week or 2 and they've completed all of these. The list starts over, they get a new list or the same list, a fresh list once they've completed everything. So pretty simple there. 30 minutes of cuddling up with your favorite book, reading. You know, that's a good summer thing. Number 2, build a project from the STEM bin, something that's interesting to you. Getting their brain going on that, creating something physical, something they can be proud of. 50 burpees. And I sarcastically put, I would recommend doing these in sets. Because we're aiming for 2 to 3 hours of time. You know, that's quite a bit of time to deal with. So you could play with, maybe they're choosing 4 or 5 tasks from a list if they're not taking very long. But I was trying to think of things that actually would take some time and that would be difficult too. Number 4, research an interesting topic in the Bible: visions, dreams, hard work, money, miracles, heaven, hell. All of those are good topics, I think. Very interesting stuff in the Bible about those. Go for a walk, 15, 30 minutes. Number 6, write a list of things you learned about an interesting topic for 30 minutes. And maybe, this is a continuation over multiple times. The next time they come to this, they kind of pick up where they left off on that research kind of journey that they're doing. Some of the examples given here that I thought of was, how does the postal system work? How does a watch keep time? That's pretty interesting, actually. So get them, the idea with some of these projects is to help them recognize that they like learning. And I actually think every human being, we're kind of created with a reward process. When we learn something new, it feels good and it's neat. So we all kind of like learning. We just don't all like learning in a building. And I can tell you, my kids, like, the older they get, the less they like learning because it's really boring. You're kind of trapped. And so as a parent, I'm thinking, if I can help them take initiative and get them in the driver's seat of their own learning, maybe they're going to enjoy it again. That would be really good. Jog 1 minute, walk 1 minute for 20 minutes. Consider keeping track of how far you've traveled throughout the summer. Number 8, make slime, glow sticks, or silly putty. Consider giving some away or selling some for profit. Number 9, come up with a business plan or plans, 15 minutes. Number 10, sidewalk chalk. You can do geometric shapes. You can practice your signature. Funny story, that's actually how I learned to write my signature that I use to this day. It was sidewalk chalk out on the front driveway with my mom, actually. Kids now, like my oldest son, he doesn't know how to sign his name. And he's practiced with his grandma, but it didn't stick, so he needs to get out there with sidewalk chalk. Drawing a little racetrack for their scooters, that's fun. I still like that at the age I'm at, and my 2-year-old also likes it, so it's ageless. It's awesome. Play in something wet, sprinkler and trampoline combo, depending on how at ease you are as a parent. Sprinkler, trampoline, and soap. We used to do that. Water balloons. Practice math flashcards, addition, multiplication, etc. Number 13, pray for a friend. Number 14, post a service on Nextdoor, the app, and earn money somehow. Number 15, take an awesome photograph or photographs of something still. So this is still life photography. Max of 3 pictures, no deleting. That's kind of the honesty system, Make sure they don't delete it. And then they could bring it to you, and you could critique it, try to talk about color, variety, balance, all those things that you probably learned in high school, photography or art. I like this one in particular because it kind of teaches patience and delay of gratification. They're going to see something really cool inevitably and not take a picture of it in hopes that they find something better, come back later, and they're going to be going through that process without you, hopefully, if you trust your child not to just be like, click, delete, pick the best one. So I like things like that will, force them to use their brain or be patient, and put them in the driver's seat of that patience. Work on being, this is probably one of my favorites too. I got better towards the end. Number 16, work on being able to do a new physical feat, a flip or cartwheel, a somersault, handstand, or a pistol squat. backflip. I've always wanted to be able to do a backflip. I tried it for a number of years before giving up. So I need to get back at it, but I don't know. The older you get, the scarier it gets. So our kids could be doing that. Number 17, practice a musical instrument for 30 minutes. Number 18, find an outdoor creature and keep it overnight as a pet. I am sorry for that one. But we've done that. We had a snapping turtle named Bowser that was caught in something of ours. I think it was a soccer net. They went out and got it, and they kept it for a night. It was fun. We'll always have a unique relationship to Bowser and snapping turtles. But I would like to kind of together as a clan come up with at least 5 to 10 things, similar things that we could include. And I think there's something to really be said. Too bad we're not in a classroom, because this would make more sense. I feel like I'm actually giving a speech up here, and I don't quite like it the best that way for this kind of stuff. But what ideas do you guys have or have you used that others might need to hear about?
Last year when coronavirus hit, I made my kids do a Bear Grylls survival week. So I made them go out and spend 3 hours in the woods each day and gave them a different challenge. So I bought a hatchet for them to work with. I bought a flint and steel for them to try. We made fish traps. They caught a catfish in the creek. They tried to cook it over a fire. I was like, you gotta make sure of food, you gotta eat bugs, this lasted for like 3 days.
That is awesome. I really like that.
But we bought Bear Grylls survival guides and stuff like that.
Yeah, that is neat. I will say that there's a Montessori school down south. It's like 15, 20 minutes away. And they're starting a service called Forest School. And it is 7 hours outside. A lot of, it's kind of like this. It's semi-structured. There's not a lot of structure at all. You even eat kind of when you're ready. And there's a hammock time or a rest time. That's towards the end of the day, and that can last as long as you want. And there's creek time, they play in the creek, and that can actually last past hammock time. So it's kind of structured. It's not a lot of structure, but how awesome, for your kids just to be climbing on trees and to gauge their own risk levels. So Chloe's going to be doing that. Our 9-year-old daughter is going to be doing that once per week. So, and it's $40 per day, so not bad. Cheaper than daycare, probably. So, other ideas? Yes, for sure. We all know the trail you're talking about. Oh, is there? Neat. Yep. I'm a sucker for a good walking trail. Yeah. What else? We got 2. We're going for 5 to 10. We need bang, 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 bust them out. Oh, yeah. Yep. For sure. Throwing balls, frisbees. We do ultimate frisbees sometimes. What are you going to say? Oh, cool. Yeah. Absolutely. Love fishing. It's very rewarding, too. Something I forgot to present on earlier was reading books. That wasn't on my list. I meant it to be. I'm trying to read a chapter every day of just any random book because readers were 21% less likely to experience depression, 20% more satisfied with their life when asked about it, and 10% were reported to have better self-esteem, and 18% more knowledgeable about other people's feelings. They're more empathetic. So how crazy. You can literally do anything, stand outside barefoot and, feel better mentally. Yep. Yes.
If you like build a garden or
Oh,
plant
yeah.
a garden,
Yep.
put together a garden where they have to work on it daily
Yeah.
and figure out what's the right seasons to plant, what's the right time to plant it to affect the baby or whatever, and then they help take care of it.
There's a lot to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Gardening. Man, all these skills that we're at risk of losing if we don't, spend some time teaching them and passing them down.
I say one of the things that we did this last summer was have the kids, like, one week, one kid is in charge of the meal, like dinner for the week. So they spent the
Oh,
week
yeah.
kind of planning and preparing our dinners
Yeah.
with me.
Yes. Cooking of the dinner or lunch. Yep. Chores could go on the list. That could be a task. That's actually how we did it. We didn't do it like this. This is an actual list that you would expect them to do, and they're not deciding what they do necessarily other than the conversation you had on the front end. And with that, you would have some of your things, and you would have some of theirs, ideally. But what we did is we had like the 4 or 5 categories. At first, we had creativity, and then they would do something on their own volition, in that category. They had to do something creative. They had to do a chore, but they picked. And they had a list they could pick from, but that list was just ideas for them to do their own thing. And it went over okay, but it was clearly kind of like school. They just did the assignment to do the assignment. So I don't know. There's not a great way around that. And it was better at the beginning. There was some excitement in the honeymoon phase, and it kind of teetered off towards the end, as summer drug out. But still, if you do something like this, you're miles ahead of, the household that does nothing. I think it's worth striving for, even if it doesn't go down perfectly like we would imagine it. So, yep. Yeah. Lego challenge. Very cool. Very cool. And there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, visual, spatial, reasoning, things like that. Really good. Yep. So it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be better. It's going to be good. The other thing is how many, 18 things. So they would be going through, they would be going through that every 2 weeks. So they'd probably do that 6 times, more like 4 or 5 if you include vacations and summer camps and things like that. So, and that's about right. If you decide how many days you want to structure, try to get the 4 or 5 mark. You don't want them, repeating the list every single week, because that's going to help the process of this is boring and really dumb. I do think part of our deal, having them choose, they kind of got stuck in their own patterns. So if you can force kind of variety on them, I think that they kind of need that structure too, because we kind of allowed them to self-structure too much. And I think that was part of why it didn't go as well. So feel free to just, this is the list. Yeah, I think that would be, random. Woo, nerve-wracking. But yeah, it adds a little bit of fun to it for sure. Did you hear what she said? Have things in a cup and have them draw. And that could add an element of excitement. It's pretty cool. Someone else? Nature walks. Yes. Nature walks with hay bales. Oh my goodness. My kids love hay bales. Actually, We do hay bales a lot. I'll save stories for next time because we're running short on time, and I didn't think we'd have that problem. Switching to helping households with negative summer behaviors, they're going to happen. There's less structure, even with the 2 or 3 hours. That's still only 2 or 3 hours. They're usually in school for like 6 or 7 hours or something. That's every day. So yeah, I think we'll find and we can expect that they'll get into more stuff. They'll fight more with each other. We'll fight more with them too. Too much togetherness tends to kind of breed that sort of thing. The only reason your children obey you is due to the relationship that you have with them. That's by Bruce Perry. He's an expert on trauma, and he's really big on relationship as a way to get kids through trauma and to heal the brain. Bruce Perry. So that's how I wanted to set this conversation up, controlling negative summer behaviors. It takes relationship. And actually, there's only relationship to rely on. You know, if you're Hitler, you may scare your child into submission, but that's more abusive than it is anything that's going to help them in life. So, self-care. I think the first part of any good plan has the parent taking care of themselves. Why is that? Because we create problems in our household, and we have to be aware of that. And that's one of the biggest pieces to controlling negative summer behaviors is minimizing how much chaos you start in your own household. We do this. How do we do this? We do this by picking the wrong battles, usually. Or just letting things go because we're fed up. You know, it's kind of like the little role play that we did up here. We either give in or we're too like on them when we're stressed. And so if we're more relaxed and we're taking care of ourselves, it's gonna help a ton. Structure, having some kind of structure in the summer is automatically gonna help, you know, behaviors because they're doing something with their time. There's more time that's being filled with things. Also, they're gonna feel better with the structure. Kids need structure. It's an actual need, and they actually appreciate it, even though you might get pushback. It's very common to get pushback, but it doesn't mean it's not a need, for sure. Using affirmations and rewards is really important. And I would encourage people to do that 2 or 3 times more than they're using consequences. And this usually, the reason it's so easy to get more affirmations and rewards because it's as simple as, you know, hey, good job with that. You did really good. Good job brushing your teeth. I didn't even have to tell you, you know. We were finding my child, my 4-year-old, naked in the house a lot and used nothing but rewards to kind of help with that. And that's something that can really freak parents out. Like, are they going to do that in school someday? You know, it's preschool time at 4. Like, oh no, what if we have someone watch them and they do that and they think we're weird or something? They're going to get undressed at church, start playing with themselves. But what I did, and it actually took 3 rewards. I found my child alone, usually 30 seconds after they were alone. Reward, you know, piece of candy. Hey, Zach, good job being dressed. And did it a couple more times, and it hasn't happened in like 3 weeks. And it was a real issue. He was like never clothed. And some people would say, don't even worry about it, but we're the kind of household that we don't run around naked. So if you do, no judgment. It's whatever, but we wanted that taken care of. It's just the power of rewards. We tend to underestimate them, but they do extremely powerful things when you actually just do them consistently and use them. So rely on them to a great degree. That actual process is reward other desirable behavior, RODB, in the research. If you Google that, I Googled it, didn't find anything, but I know I learned about it in grad school. So I'm going to keep Googling. But it's a really powerful way to control your kids' behavior in a good way. So.
You might find something about replacement behaviors. If you look at like rewarding replacement behaviors,
Oh, yeah.
you might find
Yep, for sure. Short, consistent consequences. The reason I won't give consequences at times is because they're not short enough. And I think they're damaging. And I'm the one that wants my child to escape punishment, and that's a bad thing. So if you shorten them up, you'll probably use them more, and they'll still be effective if you're pairing them with affirmations and rewards and all the other things that we're talking about. I always say that consequences should probably be the most harmful thing we're doing and the most intense thing we're doing in our household to minimize negative behaviors. I think they work. They just don't work as good as the other things that we're talking about. Problem is, as parents, like when it comes to interacting with our kids and controlling their behaviors, that's the first thing we think about. And we constantly overrate what consequences can do. So feel free to do those less. That's one thing you can do less of. But when you use them, make sure you're using them consistently. When you consequence something, make sure you're okay with, for eternity, you're going to consequence that at that level. It can't be this unpredictable stuff that we get into. Star chart pairs really well with the schedule we just talked about. If they complete their tasks of the day, they get a little star. If they do that for a week or two or a month, they get something. They get something that they want. And that can be a great way to kind of help them along in this scheduling stuff. The jar of beans. Did anyone have the teacher that did the jar of jelly beans or popcorn? We did. I was in like 3rd or 5th grade or something. And every time, it was kind of RODB. It was anytime we were doing something good that she wanted us to keep doing, we got a bean in the jar. And it was like 2 or 3 times that year that we earned a pizza party. So we could do that, and that would pair really well with this summer too. Aim for something they can do 2 or 3 times of, so maybe gobstoppers or something, a little bigger in a jar. And one thing to avoid would be avoid excessive control, and just remember that, pick the big stuff. We don't always have to be hovering over our child and saving them from every little thing. That causes a lot of tension and a lot of fights in that relationship that actually helps them obey you. It helps them do what you say as a parent. All right. Any questions about, yeah? Jackie's got questions.
I grew up in I'm a very performance-oriented kid, right? But I don't.
Is that on? There we go. It's something that I've done some thinking about. I would like to spend a little more time thinking about that. My initial thoughts are that, yes, I think that consequences can help kind of develop that in a good way. It can also go bad. They can become too rule-based. If we're too rule-based, they can obviously pick that up. But it is a complete mystery, how someone falls in love with Christ, even in your household. I think that as parents, we will never know how that process really fully works. So was your question, if we minimize doing consequences, is it like, what was it?
This is all about modifying their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But modifying their behavior isn't reaching their heart at all.
Yeah.
Because they're still sinners who are going to choose to be selfish Like that's the natural rebellion of the heart. And so I was thinking, do you have tips and stuff to help? What are things we can do to help shepherd their heart more than just modify their behavior?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, some of the things that you put on the list could be, getting them excited about researching things that they're curious about in the Bible, praying for friends, things like that. If you're really wanting to see spiritual growth in them, I would probably just include more of that on the list of things that they're doing during the summer. And also, don't forget to ask questions about where they're actually at, where they see themselves at. They may see themselves in a completely different spiritual growth area than what you see. And who knows, whose version is right. But don't forget to have that conversation with them, I think, and invite them into that and let them know the things that are on your heart that you would like to see from them, for sure. You don't want it to turn into a battle and a fight, and that battle and fight push them away from doing those things because we're telling them to do them. And that's really tricky. I don't know the best way. So if that conversation goes well, maybe have them come up with spiritual things that they would like doing. Yeah. But definitely try as hard as you can to stay out of the control, I'm pushing my beliefs on you kind of thing. And the more we can maximize their discovering their relationship with God, on their own, that's a great way to go. Yeah. All right. Let's end it. Let's have a quick prayer, and then we'll release. Dear Lord, thank you so much for just showing up with us here, being with us, and helping us to do some healthy thinking on what a good summer is and looks like, Lord. And we know that we haven't presented the perfect summer, and our envisionment of it isn't perfect, and therefore we need you. We need your relationship to guide us into what you would have for our families and for us and for our kids this summer, Lord. And we just pray into that. We pray that not only do we grow as parents, but our children grow. Father, and we can do that together, and when we do that, that we give you the glory, Lord, that it's not us working to create these things. It's you. You've given us every good thing that we've come out with in life, our ability to reason and think, and we just thank you for all of those gifts, and we pray that our gifts as parents, they rub off on our kids. Amen.